Cognitive Distortions in CBT. Author, Mr. John Crimmins, CBT psychotherapist. Why is it important to understand cognitive distortions? Understanding cognitive distortions is an important part of understanding our thoughts and preparing to work on them using cognitive therapy insights. By understanding some common faulty patterns of thinking, it is easier for us to notice our own patterns during the course of our daily lives. The more we notice these patterns, the more likely we are to be able to modify these thoughts and start feeling better. When we are anxious, the facts of a situation can become distorted. Cognitive distortions are patterns of thinking that are heavily influenced by our emotions. Have you ever seen one of those fun house mirrors? While we know how we really look, what we see in the mirror looks different than what is real. As you will see when you review the list of cognitive distortions, these distortions tend to follow certain patterns, and many of them overlap with others. Cognitive distortions tend to be extreme. There is often a black and white, or all or nothing, quality to these thoughts. Cognitive distortions tend to emphasize negatives at the expense of positives. We are programmed to think of negatives first when we feel anxious, because our bodies are trying to protect us. Distorted thoughts tend to be general instead of specific. Understanding cognitive distortions is an important part of understanding our thought process. It prepares us to become aware of our negative thinking patterns. By understanding some common faulty patterns of thinking, it is easier for us to notice our own patterns during the course of our daily lives. The more we notice these patterns, the more likely we are to be able to modify these thoughts and start feeling better. Here are some examples of cognitive distortions. Black and white thinking. We see things, events, and people as perfect or terrible, all good or all bad. We say always or never often, not seeing the gray zone that is almost always there. Catastrophizing. We react to a disappointment or failure as though it means the end of the world. Jumping to conclusions. We assume the worst without checking the evidence. We decide that someone dislikes us, but we don't check it out, or we predict that terrible things will happen even when there is no evidence for this. Ignoring the positives. We don't pay attention to positive experiences, or we reject them or say they somehow don't count. My fault. We take blame or responsibility for things outside of our control, or are not our job. Using shoulds. We constantly feel we should be doing better or doing something else with our lives. This can leave us feeling inadequate despite our attempts to be self-motivating. Magnifying and minimizing. We define ourselves by our shortcomings and minimize our strengths. Labels. Instead of focusing on people's behaviors, we make blanket statements. I am such an idiot, or he's such a jerk. Perfectionism. We believe that all mistakes are bad and to be avoided. Because of this, we don't take the necessary risks to be successful. We may also try to control all circumstances and make them fit what we think is right. Reasoning. From our emotions. We believe that because we feel a certain way, that indicates the truth about a situation, and we may even act accordingly even if it hurts us in the long run. Cognitive distortions are thoughts that are heavily influenced by emotions. They may not be consistent with the facts of a situation. An important part of cognitive therapy is identifying ways that thoughts may be distorted and noticing patterns in our thinking. As we become more aware of these patterns, we are better able to modify anxiety-producing thoughts leading to better life choices. Get out that pen and paper. Research shows that people who write things down as part of CBT practice do better than those that try to do it all in their heads. While it does involve more work, and may seem like going back to school, we hope you will give it a try at first, until the skills become more natural. Optimism is the faith that leads to achievement. Nothing can be done without hope and confidence. Knowing is not enough, we must apply. Willing is not enough, we must do. With the new day comes new strength and new thoughts. Cognitive distortions and thought restructuring related to the fear of fear are just one part of a comprehensive CBT treatment plan. It is also necessary to understand the other major concepts of CBT, such as core beliefs and behavioral modification, exposure and mindfulness. Research shows that a combination of CBT methods and skills works best in managing anxiety over the long term.